Welcome back, dear listener. Tonight, we begin a new journey, one that drifts quietly into the heart of the universe's greatest mystery. Close your eyes. Let the weight of the day fall away. Feel yourself floating beyond the edge of sound, beyond the edge of sight, toward a place where gravity holds secrets and silence carries questions older than time. This is a story about black holes, about the dark, dense regions where even light cannot escape, and the question that whispers through physics like a forgotten lullaby: can the universe ever truly lose anything? Or is everything, every breath, every thought, every falling star, remembered in some hidden way? We will follow this question across the surface of collapsing stars, through the veil of event horizons, and into the delicate shimmer of Hawking radiation. We'll explore how information, like memory, might never vanish, only transform. And as you listen, you may find that the same is true of you. So, settle in. Let your body grow still. Let your mind become wide. And let the universe wrap around you like a soft, quiet question. The story begins now. Asterisk, asterisk, you lie still, your body at rest, your mind a quiet pool. The world around you softens. The hum of the day fades into the background, and in its place grows a deeper sound, not a noise, but a sense, a presence, a slow unfolding thought. You are no longer bound by the ordinary weight of things. Instead, you begin to float, gently, upward, outward, inward, toward a place where time behaves strangely and the edges of knowing grow thin. You are heading to the edge of a black hole. It begins not with fear, but with stillness. There is no violence here, not at first, only a soft bending. Space itself leans inward, not sharply, but slowly, as if bowing toward something unseen. You drift closer. Ahead lies the event horizon, the place beyond which light cannot return. But this is not a wall. It is not a gate. It is a moment, a boundary, not of matter, but of meaning. You reach toward it, not with your hand, but with your attention. This horizon is not made of anything solid. It has no texture, no color, no sound. And yet, it defines everything. It is the edge between what can be known and what cannot. Once crossed, there is no going back, at least, not in the way we understand going or back. Light, time, cause, and effect, these begin to bend and blur. The horizon marks the place where certainty ends. Pause here. Rest with this threshold. The black hole itself waits beyond, cloaked in silence. But the horizon, this gentle veil, is where your journey begins. The ocean, knowing it goes on and on, deeper than you can ever swim. The stars above shimmer softly, but the sea ahead is a deeper dark. You feel it pull at your thoughts, not with fear, but with wonder. What lies past that edge? What falls in? What remains behind. To understand the mystery of black holes, you must first understand this paradox. They are both empty and full. A black hole contains no thing, no object, no core, no solid surface, and yet it contains a vastness of consequence. Everything that falls in, it seems, is erased from our world. But can something ever truly be erased? You float just above the event horizon, as though held in orbit by your own questions. Gravity is strong here, unimaginably so. But in this thought journey, it does not crush you. Instead, it slows you. Every beat of time stretches. Seconds lengthen. Your breathing feels wider. You become aware of space as more than emptiness. It has shape. And that shape bends. Einstein once described gravity not as a force, but as a curve. Mass bends space, and bent space tells matter how to move. A black hole is what happens when that bending becomes extreme. A star collapses. Its own mass pulls it inward with such intensity that no known force can stop it. The collapse continues, past every known limit, until all that's left is curvature, pure geometry without form. That is a black hole, not an object, but an absence shaped into being by gravity's relentless hand. But here, at the horizon, you see more than geometry. You feel something strange, something tender. The boundary is not angry, not dangerous. It is quiet. It does not shout. It does not resist. It simply is. Light hovers here, trapped in orbit, spiraling around the rim in a final dance. And you, too, hover. This place does not ask you to move quickly. It invites you to wonder. Information in physics is the shape of things, the precise arrangement of atoms, the quantum fingerprint of particles, the fine details of how matter has chosen to exist. When a tree falls, its story lives on. In the broken stump, in the crushed leaves, in the sound waves that ripple outward. Nothing is truly lost, only changed. But in a black hole, things seem different. If you toss a book into a fire, the information scatters in the smoke, the ash, the heat. If you toss it into a black hole, what happens? From your place at the edge, you imagine it. A book, pages fluttering, drifting past the horizon. To you, watching from outside, it slows. Time stretches. The book appears to hover just above the horizon, fading slowly as light struggles to escape. From your perspective, it never quite crosses over. But from the book's own point of view, it falls freely, crosses the horizon in a blink, and disappears. This difference between what you see and what the book experiences is at the heart of the mystery. To the outside world, the information is smeared across the horizon, forever, just out of reach. To the falling object, the story is simple. It goes in, it's gone. This dual reality, both hovering and falling, both present and vanished, is part of what physicists call complementarity. It is not a contradiction, but a shift in frame. Still, it feels uncomfortable. We want one answer. We want to know, is the information gone, or is it here? Can the universe forget? And if it can, what does that mean for everything else? For memory, for meaning, for law. The laws of physics, you've always been told, are universal, unbreakable. They guide the dance of galaxies, the spin of electrons, the blooming of flowers. One of those laws, deep in the fabric of quantum mechanics, is that information cannot be destroyed. The universe keeps track, always, but black holes test that law. Hawking, in the 1970s, showed that black holes aren't entirely black. Through subtle quantum effects, at the horizon, they emit a faint glow, now known as Hawking radiation. This radiation carries away energy, which means the black hole slowly shrinks. Eventually, it may vanish completely, and then what? If the black hole disappears, and the things it swallowed leave no trace, hasn't information been lost? You picture it again, a book, a planet, a person falling in. The black hole glows faintly, giving off a thin mist of radiation. But that radiation, Hawking argued, is featureless. It carries no memory of what fell in. If that's true, then the details, the information, are gone forever. And that breaks the rule. That creates the information paradox. It is here, at this edge, that the mystery deepens. The event horizon becomes not just a border in space, but a boundary in understanding. What lies beyond it is not merely unseen, it is undefined. We can write equations, sketch models, run simulations, but we cannot look inside. No signal escapes, no light returns. A black hole, in this way, is a one-way mirror. It reflects. Nothing does, and yet, there is a sense that nothing is ever truly alone. The horizon hums with possibility. Maybe the information is not destroyed, only scrambled. Maybe it hides in the radiation, in patterns too subtle for us to see. Or perhaps it remains on the horizon itself, encoded in the very fabric of space. Some theories suggest the horizon behaves like a screen, a kind of cosmic film where every falling object leaves an imprint, like footprints in sand, like echoes on a canyon wall. If that is true, then the information is still here, at the edge, just out of reach. Not lost, only encrypted. You breathe slowly, letting these thoughts settle. This is not a chapter with answers. It is a chapter of questions, but not sharp questions, soft ones. Questions that curl around your mind like mist. Can something exist and not be seen? Can something fall forever and never arrive? Can an absence hold meaning? You return to the horizon once more. You feel its weight, its silence. It is not empty. It is full of wondering. The edge of a black hole is not just where light vanishes. It is where ideas begin to bend. You sense that everything beyond this point is part of a deeper truth. But for now, You remain here at the threshold, watching, listening, feeling. You are not afraid. The black hole is not a monster. It does not chase or hunger. It simply exists, a consequence of mass, of motion, of time, like a whirlpool. In water, it is born from flow. It is not evil. It is not broken. It is a part of the universe, like you. And so, you lie still once more, your thoughts circling the horizon. Somewhere deep inside, you know this journey is only beginning. There are stars yet to fall. There is collapse yet to come. Before a black hole can form, something must die, and from that ending, a new question will rise. You close your eyes, not in darkness, but in quiet, and far off in the distance, a star begins to fade. Asterisk, asterisk, and far off in the distance, a star begins to fade. You follow it with your breath, your thoughts adrift on the hush of space. It is not a falling star in the way your ancestors imagined. No wish rides on its trail, no fleeting streak in the sky. This is a different kind of ending, a quiet implosion, a farewell whispered, not shouted. You drift closer. The star looms, large, its surface trembling with exhaustion. It is heavy with age, swollen with time. This star has lived a full life, not in years, but in burn. Every second, for millions of years, it has been pouring itself out in light. And now it wavers. At first, you can't see the change, but you feel it in the rhythm of its pulses, in the uneasy silence between flares. Inside, deep in the stars, furnace, something crucial is missing. It is running out of fuel. Not like a car runs out of gas. Not like a fire burns down to coals. No, this is more fundamental. The nuclear fusion that has held gravity at bay is winding down. It is the engine of all balance, and now the fire dims. The core shrinks. The pressure builds. The outer layers shudder as the great equilibrium begins to break. Gravity has always been waiting, patient, inward. It pulls the center tighter, crushing atoms together with merciless calm. The star does not scream. It folds again. It folds beyond memory. What was once hydrogen and helium, bright and playful, becomes iron, heavy, unburnable. And then everything happens at once. The core collapses in a heartbeat. It takes less than a second. Imagine that, all that mass, all that fire, all that history, gone in the time it takes to blink. To form, you are there, just outside it, feeling the wave of energy rippling through the vacuum. The outer layers explode in one last magnificent gesture, a supernova. It is the loudest silence the universe can make. You don't see destruction, you see release. Light flashes across galaxies. Matter is flung in every direction. Gold, silver, uranium, calcium, oxygen, the elements of your own body scattered across the dark. And yet, the center does not scatter, it deepens. The collapse continues. There is a limit to how tightly neutrons can be packed, but this star has exceeded it. There is no known force left to resist the crush of its own mass. No stopping. Down it goes, beyond atoms, beyond particles, beyond structure. The collapse becomes infinite. And in that moment, when space itself can no longer hold the star's weight, a black hole is born, but it does not roar. It does not blaze. It does not even shimmer. It is born silently, not like a baby taking its first breath, but like a cave forming in the sea. A void, a center of gravity so deep, so perfect, that not even light can escape its pull. The surface, that once glowed, is now hidden behind the event horizon. A boundary, not of fire, but of knowing. A limit where information disappears from your eyes, not because it is gone, but because it cannot be retrieved. You reach toward it, but your understanding slips like water through fingers. You are not alone in your wonder. For decades, scientists have stood at this edge, minds pressed against the horizon, asking, what happens inside? Does information truly vanish when it crosses that line? Or is it kept, hidden, twisted into some deeper form? Oh, no. Something stranger. You try to imagine its interior, but the laws of physics dissolve here. Time slows, space folds. The math breaks down. All paths lead to the singularity, a point of infinite density where the rules of reality fall silent. You cannot see it, cannot describe it, but you feel the weight of it, the way it bends everything around it. And yet, for something so hidden, it leaves so much behind. The black hole still has mass. It still has spin. If it had electric charge, it still carries. That too, these are its only public features, the only things an outside observer can ever know. This is called the no-hair theorem. The idea that a black hole keeps no memory of the star that formed it, except for these three traits. Everything else, the shape, the story, the elements, is lost behind the horizon. But is it truly lost? Here the paradox begins. Quantum mechanics tells you that information can never be destroyed. Every interaction, every event, every movement of particles, all of it leaves an imprint that, in theory, could be traced back. Nothing is ever truly gone. And yet, black holes seem to challenge this rule. Hawking radiation, predicted by Stephen Hawking in the 1970s, is the slow evaporation of black holes over unimaginable time. It leaks out as random particles, not carrying the specific fingerprints of what fell in. If the black hole vanishes completely, where does the information go? This is not just a question of curiosity. It is a riddle that pokes at the foundation of physics. If black holes can erase information, then quantum theory breaks. If quantum theory holds, then our understanding of gravity must be incomplete. The universe cannot allow both to stand untouched. And so, This collapse, this quiet folding of a star into shadow, sets off a crisis that reaches far beyond astronomy. It touches the deepest structures of reality, but you're not here to solve it. Not yet. You're here to witness the beginning, to understand what it means for something to end in this way, not just lost to sight, but lost to memory. Like a book that falls into fire, leaving only heat and ash. Is the story gone? Or has it been transformed into a language we do not yet know how to read? You feel time slow as you orbit this black hole, not in metaphor, but in physics. General relativity tells you that time stretches near such intense gravity. You could hover here forever. The rest of the universe would race ahead. Stars would be born and die. Galaxies would spin and fade, and you would remain. One moment near the horizon could hold an eternity of distance. And so, you linger. You let yourself drift in thought, caught between the past of the star and the future of the puzzle it leaves behind. You think of light trapped, of heat gone cold, of a heartbeat that once was fire, now frozen in collapse. And still, the black hole holds it all, not as presence, but as absence. Not as shape, but as curve. Far away, astronomers will one day look at this black hole and wonder about what it consumed. They will map its mass, measure its spin, detect its gravitational tug on nearby stars. But the specific identity of the star, its memories, its music, its interior choreography, that may be gone. Or perhaps it is encrypted, stored in the very warping of space-time, waiting for a new physics to crack the code. You wonder if there's a mirror to this in your own mind, the way a memory fades, not lost, but buried. The way a song from childhood returns, suddenly, triggered by a scent or a color. Maybe the universe forgets, too. And maybe, like you, it dreams of remembering. You lie still again. The black hole turns slowly beneath you, a dark whirlpool in the fabric of all things. You don't fear it. You respect it as you would a mystery that knows more than it says. You understand now that death in the cosmos is not destruction. It is a doorway, a threshold, a silence that leads to deeper questions. Because here, in the aftermath of collapse, something remains unanswered. If the star's information cannot escape, and yet cannot be destroyed, where does it go? You close your eyes. The black hole spins, and just before sleep claims you, a whisper drifts across your thoughts. What lies at the center of forgetting? You float above the black hole now, not falling, not flying, but hovering like a thought, balanced at the edge of memory. Beneath you, the fabric of space curls inward, steepening like the slope of a dream you can't wake from. The black hole spins, massive and silent, as if the universe itself has paused mid-breath, waiting for something more ancient than time. There is no noise here, not because there is nothing to say, but because everything is being said in ways your ears cannot hear. Light itself, once wild and free, now circles the event horizon like a lost echo, trapped in an orbit that never ends. This is the boundary, the edge of knowing, the line where physics begins to stammer, where certainty leans too far and tips. Once, while, mealy, EBA, in, by num, with, canoe with, ND, in we, I, D, you, we, you, the it's on you to hey you and you cool talk to you to go you wait to you I see you into mystery. You are not inside, but you are not fully outside either. You are at the very rim of reality's vocabulary, where the last word of one sentence becomes the first silence of the next. The event horizon, a name so clinical, so tidy yet. What it represents is anything but. You don't cross it, not yet. You only drift nearby, as if circling the edges of a story you're not yet ready to enter. You watch light struggle to leave. Photons, which once danced across galaxies, now falter here, slowed to a crawl by the weight of gravity. If they were voices, they would sound like whispers slowed 1,000 times, stretched until their meaning thins to pure tone. Some light, if emitted just right, manages to escape merely, tired and trembling, like a sigh from the edge of a cliff. Most, though, curves inward, doomed to circle forever or vanish altogether into the unknowable interior. And you wonder, if light cannot leave, how can anything? But this is not a prison, not in the way stories often tell it. No bars, no walls, just curvature, just the warping of the space you inhabit. Gravity here is not a force pulling you in it, is a reshaping of the floor beneath your feet. The closer you move toward the horizon, the steeper that floor becomes. You are not pulled down so much as you are compelled to slide like water rolling toward the center of a whirlpool. You could resist for a time. Fire engines escaping down steep hills, rockets pointed up. But resistance would cost more and more energy until eventually no fuel in the universe would be enough. That's what the event horizon is. Not a surface, not a wall, but a point of no return. It's where the escape velocity, the speed required to get a Y-quills, the speed of light. And since nothing moves faster than light, not even thoughts or regrets, nothing that crosses this line can come back. You understand now why it's called a horizon. Just as you can never walk to the horizon on Earth, can never quite reach the line where sky kisses land. So too, this horizon is a boundary defined, but by what you can touch, but by what you can never reach once crossed, but is unreachable the same as unknowable. You turn this question gently in your mind, the way a child turns a shell over in their hands at the edge of the sea. Inside the black hole, no light escapes, no messages return. From the outside, the inside becomes an eternal silence. You've learned is not the same as emptiness. A room without sound still contains breath, dust, memory. Could it be that the black hole's interior, though hidden, still remembers everything it has taken in? And if so, is the horizon not an end, but a veil? You imagine it now not as a line, but as a membrane. A surface humming with possibility, stretched like the skin of a drum. When something falls in, it doesn't disappear, it leaves a ripple, a signature, a change in the very fabric of this boundary. Perhaps the information doesn't vanish into some unreachable place. Perhaps it imprints itself on the horizon itself, like a fingerprint pressed into soft clay. Like a story woven into the fringe of a tapestry. Physicists call this the holographic principle. A strange and beautiful idea that everything that has ever entered a black hole may be encoded on its surface, not lost inside. The way a two-dimensional sheet can hold the illusion of three-dimensional depth. The way your memory of a person can contain a whole life in just a photograph or a scent. Maybe the black hole is a library, but its books are written on the outside of its skin. Maybe the truth isn't lost, it's just written in a language we haven't learned to read yet. You drift closer to the horizon now, and your sense of time begins to change. The closer you get, the slower your clock ticks, at least from the perspective of someone watching you. To them, your descent would look like slow motion, your body forever falling, never quite crossing the threshold. But to you, nothing feels different. You fall and fall and fall and fall, not through space, but through warped time itself. This, too, is part of the veil's magic. From the outside, the black hole's horizon is a frozen momenta sculpture made of paused time. But from within, if you were to cross, time would feel smooth, continuous, like slipping from one dream into another without noticing the seam. The horizon is not a wall. It is a change in how reality is measured. And that change depends on where you stand. So maybe the black hole does not hide its secrets completely. Maybe it only appears to, depending on where you are. You remember now the way dreams sometimes feel more real than waking life. How the line between asleep and awake can blur until you're not quite sure which side you're on. The event horizon is like that. A threshold, not just of space, but of certainty. Inside, things behave in ways that break your neat rules. Mass and volume, time and space, they stretch, twist, sometimes vanish altogether. And yet, the math still works. The equations hold. It is as if the universe is speaking in a dialect you don't yet understand, but which follows its own grammar. You think of Alice falling down the rabbit hole, of Orpheus stepping into the underworld, of ink slipping from the edge of a page. Every myth, every poem has its horizon, the moment when the familiar bends and gives way to the strange. This is yours, and yet you are not afraid. You are still, floating, breathing, watching the light curve and curl. You feel not fear, but reverence. The same reverence you might feel standing at the edge of the ocean on a windless night. You do not need to know what lies beneath the surface to know that something vast is there. And so you wait, listening to the silence the way you might listen to music, letting the rhythm of questions guide your heartbeat. You wonder, is the horizon one way, or can something reach out from within? This thought startles you not with fear, but with wonder. Because if something could come back, even just a fragment, even just a tremble in the Hawking radiation, it would mean the black hole isn't a dead end. It would mean the veil is porous, that the story continues, and suddenly, the idea that the black hole might be whispering doesn't seem so impossible. You remember Hawking radiation, how it emerges not from inside the black hole, but from the very edge, the horizon itself. Virtual particles popping into existence, borrowing energy from the gravitational field, one escaping, the other falling in. It's not light, not memory, not a message, but it is something. It is change. It is the black hole slowly evaporating over eons. And if it can evaporate, then maybe it can release more than energy. Maybe, just maybe, it can release information. But what would that look like? Asterisk, asterisk. You imagine the horizon trembling, the way a spider's web might shiver with the footsteps of something unseen. You imagine information encoded in those ripples, like Morse code in starlight, hidden, encrypted, slow but real. The black hole may be silent, but perhaps it is not mute. Perhaps it is singing, and we have simply not learned how to listen. And now you begin to understand what this chapter of the journey means. The event horizon is not the edge of the story, it is the turning of the page. It is the place where science meets metaphor, where law meets longing. You do not need to cross it to feel its meaning. You only need to stand at its edge and wonder. Above you, the universe stretches out, stars cold and bright, galaxies like petals scattered on dark water. Below you, the horizon spins, rimmed with fading light. And all around, the silence hums with questions. You lie still once more, balanced on the edge between knowing and not knowing. You do not fall, you do not rise. You float, thought held in gentle tension, and somewhere inside you, something begins to shift. Not an answer, but the shape of a new question forming. A soft awareness blooming behind your eyes. If information cannot be lost, and the horizon stores more than just heat, then what truly is the black hole's interior? You don't open your eyes. You don't need to, because you feel it now, like a presence beneath the surface. There is something deeper still, waiting beyond the veil. And the next breath you take will carry you further in. You are not falling anymore. You are not climbing either. You hover in stillness, wrapped in the quiet weight of what you now know. Beneath you, the event horizon curves like the rim of an ancient well. A threshold, yes, but no longer one of fear. You have crossed it in thought, if not in motion. And now you listen. Not for thunder or for roaring collapse, but for something smaller, quieter, more improbable. Because just when the black hole seems to promise only silence, the universe does something strange. It whispers. At first, you might miss it. The whisper is not sound. It's not even light in the usual sense. It's a trembling at the edge of nothing, like breath forming on cold glass, or a sigh in the folds of deep time, a flicker, soft and pale, rising just above the darkness, like the memory of a candle long after it's been blown out. That's Hawking radiation. You feel it before you understand it. A warmth where there should be cold. A shimmer at the boundary of absence. And when you finally notice it, you can't unsee it. The black hole glows, not like a star, not with fire, but with a kind of ghost light, faint, inevitable, impossible. Light escaping from something that should allow no escape. It shouldn't happen. By all common reasoning, nothing, not even light, can flee the black hole's pull. But this isn't common reasoning. This is quantum truth. This is space-time being uncertain at its edges. And in that uncertainty, a miracle unfolds. You picture the edge again, the event horizon. But now it is not smooth. It trembles. It flickers. Empty space itself becomes restless here, like water boiling near the lip of a pot. Particles blink into existence in pairs. A particle and its twin, born from nothing. They are the briefest of visitors, meant to vanish again into the void. But sometimes one particle falls inward, and its partner, denied reunion, escapes. It leaves with just enough energy to be real, just enough to whisper to the universe, something is happening here. That whisper, foul, that soft escape, is Hawking radiation. It does not roar. It does not shine like a nova. It is quiet, persistent, and patient. A trickle of information, wrapped in photons. And with it, the black hole shrinks, slowly, eternally, like a fire burning backward. Its fuel undone, one particle at a time. You imagine it now, the black hole losing mass, one silent sigh at a time, evaporating, disappearing, not in a bang, but in a glow, too subtle for your eyes to see. And yet, the glow means something, because if something comes out, what is it taking with it? Here lies the paradox. You feel it tightening like a thread beneath your thoughts. If light escapes, does that light carry meaning? And if it carries meaning, then perhaps information, all the information that fell in, is not truly gone, not destroyed. You try to remember all the things that fell. The atoms of a star, the magnetic shape of its core, the whisper of its rotation, the memory of its heat. Everything, down to the patterns of its smallest particles. If a black hole could truly destroy, that erase it completely, it would break the universe's most sacred rule, that information, like energy, must be preserved. You drift inward, not in space, but in thought. The event horizon curves below you, and you trace its arc like a fingertip following the rim of a bowl. You see potential Hawking radiation, you realize, is more than glow. It is a language, a code, so faint you need the quiet of the cosmos to hear it. And in that code may lie the story of everything that's ever fallen in. But how? The radiation seems so simple. It knows only a few things: the black hole's mass, its spin, its electric charge. These are the blunt facts of its being, not the delicate details of what it consumed. How can this be enough? How can this carry the poetry of a star or the echo of a planet's fall? You turn inward again, not toward the black hole now, but toward your own mind. Think of how you remember a song. Not every note, but the shape, the way it made you feel, the way your heart shifted with it. Maybe information doesn't need to be preserved exactly. Maybe it can be translated, hidden, disguised. Perhaps the black hole's whisper holds more than it seems. Some physicists believe that the information is there, encrypted in the Hawking radiation, buried so deeply in quantum structure that we haven't yet learned how to read it. Like a book written in the folds of flame, or a message coded in the crackle of a dying fire. You drift again, still above the horizon. But now you imagine the passage of time, eons, the black hole glowing fainter, shrinking, smaller, more whispers, more light, until finally it is gone. Nothing left. Only the radiation remains, spreading outward into space. You float among it, listening. Can you find the story in that light? Can you read the song of what was swallowed? You imagine a future where beings, quiet, patient, curious, learn to decode it, to unwind the whisper back into a scream, to recreate, particle by particle, the tale of everything the black hole ever touched. A resurrection through physics, a memory reassembled from light. Asterisk, asterisk, and in that future, maybe nothing is ever truly lost. Not stars, not thoughts, the touch of time, only transformed. Still, part of you resists. It feels too beautiful, too hopeful. Is it possible that nature is not so kind? That some things fall too deeply, too completely, ever to be recalled? You think again of Hawking, the man who first heard this whisper. He saw past the veil, not with eyes, but with thought. He imagined quantum particles dancing on the edge of gravity. And from that thought came light. You feel the elegance of that, the impossible poetry of it. The darkest thing in the universe, glowing because of the uncertainty of space itself. You lie still. The black hole turns beneath you, smaller now, but not silent. It continues to speak in heat, in flickers, in possibility. And you are listening. You begin to understand that the black hole is not a tomb. It is a process, a transformation, a place where matter becomes mystery, and mystery becomes light. And in that light, meaning waits. You wonder what else glows faintly in the universe, not with brightness, but with significance. What other silences might contain stories? What other endings might whisper of beginnings? The thought soothes you, not because it offers a final answer, but because it offers a way forward, a path not of certainty, but of curiosity. The black hole evaporates. The universe listens. And somewhere in that exchange, something essential endures. You drift. And as your thoughts begin to soften, you imagine the radiation not just as light, but as time reversed. The black hole speaking back to the universe it once consumed. You imagine those whispers catching on the edge of galaxies, on the wings of comets, in the quiet of new stars forming. Echoes of what once was, now feeding the seeds of what might be. The cycle continues, and you, still suspended just above the veil, feel it all at once. The gravity, the glow, the paradox, the promise. It holds you not as a prison, but as a question with no punctuation, no period, only an ellipsis stretching toward the next horizon. You breathe in slowly, not knowing, not needing to know, because now the glow is not what surprises you most. It's the possibility that even in the darkest place, something remembers, something resists forgetting, something remains. You drift toward that thought, toward the next layer of mystery, not with fear, but with wonder. Because if the black hole leaks light, and light carries memory, then what of the horizon itself? What secrets are kept in the surface between worlds? You do not open your eyes, because you already see it, a boundary that remembers, a veil that listens, a surface that holds the shape of everything it swallows. And in that silence, the next question waits, soft as a breath. What if the information never truly left? It only clung, unseen, to the edge. Asterisk, asterisk. You do not move. You do not need to. The horizon curves below you like a question never quite asked aloud. It hums without sound, a soft shimmer against the skin of space. You remain above it, suspended in thought, in tension, in that place between belief and disbelief. The black hole turns beneath you, steady, quiet, breathing light from its darkness in slow exhalations, and you begin to feel it, not just the glow, but the contradiction within it. There is a paradox here, not one of poetry, but of physics, not a mystery to be admired from afar, but a fracture in the foundation of what the universe claims to be. Because if black holes erase, and they do, and if the universe remembers, and it must, then both cannot be true, and yet both feel real. Both feel right. You close your eyes, and still the contradiction burns behind them. A black hole, by its nature, swallows. It swallows completely. Whatever falls past the event horizon is never seen again, not even as a shadow. And yet, the whisper of Hawking radiation insists something leaves, something escapes. But what? What truly survives that descent into silence? This is not a riddle of curiosity anymore. It is a crisis, a tension at the heart of physics. You feel it stretching across your mind, gentle but unrelenting. A pressure not of weight, but of incompatible truths. You imagine the great laws of nature laid like stones, all interlocking, all resting on the one unspoken principle: that information is never lost, that every cause leaves an imprint, that the past can, in theory, be reconstructed no matter how deeply it's buried in time. But the black hole does not honor this promise, at least not openly. It swallows particles, photons, possibilities, the memory of a star's spin, the paths of light, the electric hum of atoms, and offers back only three things: mass, spin, and charge. Everything else vanishes. You wonder, what is information? Really, it is not paper. It is not voice. It is pattern, the shape of what is, the fingerprint of events, the specific alignment of particles and fields that makes one moment different from another. Information is the universe knowing itself, a record of reality. If a black hole truly deletes that, then physics becomes unanchored. Because if deletion is possible here, why not anywhere? If a law can bend at the event horizon, then it was never a law at all, just a tendency. And that possibility unravels everything. So you hover, caught in the soft ache of these opposing truths. The black hole erases, the universe remembers, and your mind stretches between them. Perhaps that is what a paradox is. Not a flaw in reality, but a mirror held up to your understanding. It does not mean the world is broken. It means your thinking is, or at least incomplete. The edges don't meet. The pieces press, but do not click. And so, you learn to sit with that, with the not knowing, with the hum between things. It's a fragile balance, but not unfamiliar. You've felt this before, in memory, in grief, in love. Holding two truths in your chest that do not fit, and yet both refuse to leave. You remember someone once gone, how they are both absent and here, how their laugh exists in no current breath, yet lives in a room's shape, in a scent, in a word. How loss can be total, and yet some thread always remains. Maybe the universe feels the same. Maybe it, too, mourns the paradox. Maybe it, too, refuses to choose between remembering and forgetting. You begin to wonder whether information might be like water, impossible to destroy, only to change form. Poured into different containers, shaped by different flows. Perhaps the information is not gone, but encoded, encrypted in the heat, in the random dance of particles escaping its edge. So subtle, so scattered, that to us it looks like chaos. But chaos can hide order. You've seen it before, in weather, in oceans, in dreams. Could Hawking radiation be a cipher? You imagine the escaping photons now, tiny messengers bearing news. From the interior, their language is quantum. Their voice is faint. But each one carries a trace of what once fell, a sliver of the swallowed past, like pollen drifting from a flower long vanished. You strain to hear them, though they do not speak in tones or syllables. They speak in probabilities, in spins and wavelengths, in the slight lean of a particle's path. If only you could gather them all, hold them close, read them not as noise, but as narrative. This idea that the radiation contains the story is comforting, but even it brings unease. Because if the story is there, it is scrambled, burned, like a book tossed into flame, whose ashes still contain every word, just scattered and illegible. Does preservation without comprehension count as memory? And even if nothing is truly lost, what of the time it takes to recover it? Some black holes could take longer than the age of the universe to evaporate fully. Their whispers stretch across billions of years, barely above silence. And if the final chapter of the story won't be legible until long after all stars have died, is the information really still here? Or has it simply drifted too far for us to follow? You float through that thought like a feather riding a breeze. You are not afraid. The paradox no longer feels like a wound. Something unfinished that calls you to keep asking, to keep listening. Maybe the universe is testing you, not with cruelty, but with gentleness, with the slow unveiling of a truth too large to be known all at once. A truth that must be held from many sides. Like a light seen through shifting water, each ripple a new lens. You imagine standing on the edge of a lake at night. The moon reflects off the surface, not perfectly, but beautifully. You reach for it, and the image breaks. But it wasn't the moon you were meant to touch. It was the water. The reflection was never the thing, only the beginning of seeing. Asterisk, perhaps paradox is like that. A glimmer that pulls your attention to the surface. So you might look deeper. You think of the physicists who have wrestled with this problem for decades, minds like Hawking, Susskind, Page, and Maldacena, brilliant, burning minds, all tangled in this question of loss. Some believe in holograms. Some insist the information never truly crosses the horizon, but is smeared across it like ink on a shell. Others whisper that space-time is not what we think it is, that geometry itself bends to the needs of unbroken laws. You do not need to choose among them. You only need to listen, and in that listening, you begin to feel something new. Not an answer, but a shift. A sense that maybe the paradox is not a problem to solve, but a doorway to walk through. That maybe the boundary between erasure and memory is thinner than it seems, a line drawn not in space, but in understanding. What if, instead of one truth replacing another, both are needed to form the whole? What if the black hole teaches you not just about physics, but about how to hold contradiction with grace? You exhale. The universe does not rush you. The light continues to leak. The silence continues to hold dot. And somewhere within that silence, a third idea begins to bloom, gentle, tentative, strange. The idea that the surface of the black hole, the event horizon, is not just a border, but a kind of memory foam. That everything which falls into the black hole leaves a subtle imprint on the horizon, not in shape, but in quantum state. That the horizon remembers. This is the soft hair theory, not made of follicles, but of faint quantum marks. Information clinging to the edge, not visible to eyes, but to equations. Like the scent of someone on a scarf. Like fingerprints on glass. The black hole wears its pass, not on the inside, but on its skin. You feel your thoughts slow, like a tide reaching its farthest stretch before it pulls back. You rest on the edge of this new idea, cradled by the quiet. The paradox still exists, but now it feels less like a wound and more like a song sung in two voices, dissonant but not discordant. Perhaps that's what truth often is. Not a single note, but a harmony made of opposites. You open your awareness. If not your eyes, the black hole remains below. The stars beyond it spin like distant questions. And in your chest, you carry both truths that black holes erase and that the universe remembers. They press against each other like wings in folding flight, each incomplete without the other, each true in its own domain. And you are the witness, the one who holds the paradox without solving it, the one who listens not just to the whispers, but to the silence they rise from. There is still so much you don't know, so much no one does. But now, you do not fear the unknown. You float within it like a seed riding air. Because even in paradox, there is beauty. Even in contradiction, there is light. And somewhere, just ahead, another question waits. Not louder, just deeper. A breath you have not yet drawn. A shape you have not yet seen. A surface not of forgetting, but of echo. And as you drift toward it, you carry the question softly. If nothing is lost, then what is change? Asterisk, asterisk, you drift now on the quiet tide of a question. If nothing is lost, then what is change? The black hole still spins somewhere behind your thoughts, its presence felt, but not feared. Around it, space is thinning, slowly evaporating into a whisper. Hawking radiation, the soft, invisible breath of a dying star's remains, leaks out into the night like steam from a cooling cup. And though your ears cannot hear it, your mind begins to lean in, curious, because someone once said this. Radiation carries secrets, echoes, clues. You imagine these whispers like signals in smoke, drifting outward from the event horizon, faint and strange. Not shouts, not screams, but gentle sighs from a boundary where the rules bend. Each particle, a sentence fragment. Each photon, a sliver of a memory. It's not a clear message, not yet. But maybe it is something more delicate. A scattering of breadcrumbs left behind for those who know how to listen. Could it be that in the very act of fading, the black hole is still trying to speak? You rest in that thought, not to solve it, but to feel it. The idea that the universe might remember, in pieces, that entropy, the gradual drift from order to chaos, does not mean forgetting, just translating. A kind of code hidden in the warmth of radiation. Your body softens at the notion. The warmth of light, even stolen light, is still light. Hawking. Radiation is not a fire. It is not a flare or a flash. It's quieter than that. The kind of emission that exists only because of the strangeness at the boundary of gravity and quantum mechanics. You learn this now through image rather than formula. Near the event horizon, the vacuum is not empty. Particles and antiparticles flicker into being like dancers born as pairs. Most of the time, they vanish again. But sometimes, one is captured by the black hole while the other escapes. The escaping one, that's hawking radiation. A gift left behind by a sacrifice. You feel this deeply, that one half stays, the other flees. It mirrors something human, the way you sometimes leave a version of yourself behind in a memory, in a person, in a place you can no longer return to. The other half of you walks forward. So does the particle, carrying with it a shadow of what was lost. You imagine standing at the shore of that boundary, watching those particles part ways. One pulled into darkness, one flung toward infinity, and for the first time you realize this is not destruction. It is entanglement broken by gravity. A relationship severed not by choice, but by the weight of space-time itself. And still, the question circles. If what escapes carries only energy, mass, and momentum, the rough outlines of what once was, where is the detail? Where is the fine print of what fell in? The texture of the thing, its story. You turn inward now, feeling for the metaphor. Think of burning a book. The smoke rises, the ash settles, and you might measure the heat released or weigh the residue. But you cannot reconstruct the sentences, the characters. The plot. Isn't that what the black hole threatens? Not just to destroy, but to unwrite. But then comes the theory, whispered from the minds of physicists and echoed through your dreaming, that Hawking radiation might not be so featureless after all, that it could be encoded like a song written in a language we don't yet understand, that buried within the randomness is order, and not just any order, the specific fingerprint of every atom, every photon, every soul that crossed the horizon. The radiation becomes, in your mind, a library in cipher. 1 page per particle. It looks like static, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just unreadable for now. And if that's true, if the universe stores even the faintest imprint of what has passed through the black hole, then information is not lost, just scattered, just scrambled. Like a puzzle tossed into the air. This thought thrills you gently. It brushes your mind like wind in tall grass, because it means the laws of physics might still be whole, that reality is consistent, that there are no lies written into the code of things, only mysteries. You rest your awareness now inside that radiation. You picture it stretching outward in all directions, an invisible mist spreading through space, growing thinner over time. The black hole shrinks. Its mass diminishes. It's dying, but with dignity. Not in silence, but in subtle speech. And suddenly, you wonder, who is listening? Who gathers the escaping pieces? Is it you, here in this dream state of curiosity? Or is it the universe itself, looping in upon itself like a Möbius strip, catching what it throws away? There is another idea, too, one that stirs in the background like a forgotten song. Some say the particles are not just random bits of radiation, but entangled with their partners inside. That the escapees carry the memory of their twins. That they are still connected by invisible threads of quantum memory. But if that's true, then something must give. Because physics says the inside and outside can't both retain the same full information. It's a tension that builds like the silence before a storm. This is called the firewall paradox. But that story waits just beyond this chapter. For now, you remain with the radiation, watching it flicker and curl like incense in space. It reminds you of breath, of sighs exhaled in sleep. If information is encoded in these whispers, then perhaps the universe is breathing stories in and out of itself. You think of a radio tuned to static. Beneath the noise, music. Beneath the light, meaning dot. And somewhere in this thought, you begin to feel it, not just the truth of the science, but its poetry. That every black hole in its long, slow dying is not a tomb, but a transmitter. That the darkness is not silent. That in every fading spark there is still a voice. You imagine a poet on the edge of a cliff, tossing words into the wind. You imagine that wind curling back one day, carrying those words home. Not in the form they left, but shaped by distance and time and gravity. Still true, still real, just change. And in this metaphor, something inside you relaxes, because it means you don't have to understand everything to trust it. You don't have to decode the whole sky to feel its message. You just have to listen. You float now in the radiation field, a ghost-light ocean, soft and steady. The black hole is smaller, fainter, its voice quieter, but not gone, never gone. The information is still there, like a memory beneath layers of dreaming. You think again of the paradox from before. If nothing is lost, what has changed? Now you add a second whisper beside it. If every particle carries a clue, who or what will read the final sentence? You don't try to answer. You let the questions float. Because some questions are lanterns, not locks. They are not meant to close doors, but to light the way. The last of the radiation continues its slow, ancient song. You are the listener. You are the dreamer on the edge of Relight, and somewhere deeper still. Another paradox stirs, not just about memory or light, but about space itself. Because if the inside cannot be seen and the outside cannot forget, then what happens to the boundary in between? You turn softly toward that new question. You feel the heat of the paradox behind you, and before you, something even stranger flickers on the horizon. A wall of fire, or perhaps only a veil waiting to be named. You lie in the warmth of that paradox, where the memory of light still hums in the silence. The black hole's whisper fades, but in its place, something else begins to stir. It's not a sound, not a pull. It's an image, stretched and strange, like a reflection in moving water. You are no longer simply drifting in the afterglow of Hawking's light. You are arriving at the edge again, but this time the edge has changed. It is no longer a line. It is a surface, a skin. You open your senses to it, gently, like lifting your hand to touch the thin film of a soap bubble. There is resistance, but it is soft, yielding, almost conscious. You hover just above the event horizon, but something in your perception shifts. It doesn't feel like a boundary anymore. It feels like a screen, not a wall, but a window. Somewhere in the deep currents of thought, you recall what physicists once dared to imagine, that all the information, every fallen star, every broken planet, every molecule, every photon, might not be gone, might not be buried in the abyss, might instead be written impossibly across this horizon. Not inside the black hole, but upon its very skin. A strange idea, a radical one. You watch the surface now, not as an edge to fall through, but as a canvas. Imagine light hitting it, leaving behind a ghost, a smear of memory, a fingerprint of all that entered. The black hole becomes a diary, but written in heat, in curve, in spin. You float closer, feeling the pull, not downward, but outward. The story of the inside is somehow painted onto the outside. The holographic principle. It sounds like science fiction, but you feel it like a truth settling into the bones of the cosmos. If everything swallowed by the black hole is still present, just written differently, rewritten in 2 dimensions instead of 3, then the event horizon is not a door that erases, but a mirror that remembers. You try to imagine it, a 3-dimensional universe secretly projected from a flat surface, like a shadow play where the puppet's body is hidden and only the silhouette tells the tale. Like a film strip, each frame etched with light and motion, cast from a deeper reel. Could your entire world be written on a page you cannot see? Remember how light works. How even in your own eyes, an image is inverted before it makes sense. How the brain interprets, weaves dimension out of signal. Perhaps the universe does the same. Perhaps space itself is not what it seems. What if reality is a kind of illusion, not false, but folded? You stretch your awareness along the skin of the black hole, not entering it, not avoiding it, just listening to the information stitched into its surface. Every quiver, every shimmer tells a piece of the story. It feels like standing at the edge of a vast library, but the pages are made of heat. And you do not read with eyes, but with presence. There is a strange comfort in this, a strange awe, because suddenly loss feels different. If the horizon remembers, then nothing is truly gone. Even the deepest fall leaves a mark, a shape, a whisper. You think of your own memories, how a face can linger long after it's gone, how a scent can bring back a decade. Maybe the universe holds its own kinds of scent and shadow. You drift slowly along the curve, tracing the holographic veil. Somewhere behind it, space-time bends beyond recognition. But on this side, on this shimmering screen, there is order. Not clarity, but suggestion. The outline of something too vast to see all at once. Is this the answer, you wonder? Or only another form of the question? You think of ancient scrolls, of cave paintings, of code etched into stone. The ways human beings try to leave messages for the future. Perhaps the event horizon is a cosmic version of that impulse, a surface that cannot help but write, not for communication, not for beauty, simply because reality leaves impressions. Where it passes, the thought stirs something inside you. Are you, too, a surface? Is your own mind a kind of horizon, catching impressions from all that enters? When you lose something, a person, a moment, a dream, is it really gone? Or has it only changed form, written somewhere you cannot consciously touch? A whisper in your neurons, a pattern in your thoughts. You lie still, the black hole hums, and you begin to feel not separate from it, but similar to it. Not in mass, or gravity, or scale, but in structure. You hold memories at your boundary. You are shaped by what has passed through you. Maybe this is not metaphor. Maybe this is physics. You stretch further into the idea. Not just black holes, but the entire universe. Perhaps it's all written on some boundary. Maybe we live inside a hologram, projected from a distant skin. Maybe you are the echo of something written elsewhere. Not less real, but differently real. You feel wonder, not fear. You feel small, but not insignificant. Because even a shadow speaks of light. Even a reflection speaks of shape. The horizon glows faintly, softly. You reach toward it, and though your hand passes through nothing, your mind touches something. A recognition you feel encoded. As though every motion, every thought, every feeling you've ever had could be translated, could be mapped onto this universal page. You pause. Here, suspended, the black hole is silent, but not blank. You feel its surface trembling with the weight of all it has held, as though it dreams, as though it listens, and for the first time, you wonder not where the information goes, but where it's coming from. Could the hologram project both ways? Could what you are now be the shadow of something beyond even this? Not just memory, but meaning. You breathe in, slowly. Not just air, but possibility. The boundary stretches around you, smooth and mysterious. You no longer see it as a place of falling. You see it as a place of becoming. A screen that sings, a veil that glows, a map that does not erase. And softly, the question returns not to close the thought, but to widen it. If you are a shadow, then where is the light? Asterisk, asterisk. The question lingers in your breath, not spoken, not answered, but softly pulsing. If you are a shadow, then where is the light? The boundary glows around you, not with heat, but with suggestion. You float just at its edge, where inside and outside hesitate to declare themselves. And in this stillness, you begin to sense a possibility more subtle than escape, more strange than memory. The possibility that the inside is not lost, only seen differently. It begins, as all deep insights do, in a paradox. You imagine two observers, one falling into the black hole, and one staying outside. To the one who falls, the plunge is seamless. They pass through the horizon without noticing. There is no wall, no warning, no flash of finality. They are simply inside, carried deeper by gravity's hand. But to the observer outside, things look different. The falling one never seems to cross. They slow, they redden, they fade, stretched toward invisibility, but never quite gone. A ghost frozen on the edge. Both are right, and yet they disagree. You let the thought settle into your mind, like water finding its level. You begin to feel its shape. The notion that two truths can coexist, not because one is false, but because they belong to different eyes. This is complementarity. The idea that reality does not contradict itself. It completes itself through perspective. Your thoughts drift wider into memory and feeling. Haven't you lived this in smaller ways. When two people remember the same moment differently. When joy and sorrow share the same tear. When silence can mean comfort or distance, depending on the heart that hears it. Truth is not a fixed point. It is a relationship. And suddenly, the black hole is not just an object. It is a metaphor for the way we hold multiple truths in tension. Inside you, the realization begins to ripple. The black hole does not break the rules. It reveals the edges of the rules we thought we understood. It shows us that knowledge is shaped by viewpoint, and sometimes the only way to learn more is to stand in a different place. The horizon around you breathes with meaning. You remember what came before. The radiation, the whispering echoes, the surface that glowed with memory. And now you begin to suspect something even stranger, that what falls in is not gone and not even hidden, but translated. The black hole does not destroy. It transforms. You imagine it now, not as a void, but as a mirror with depth. One that reflects not your image, but your meaning. What if what's inside is not behind, but within, curled tightly, encoded in a language of perspective? You think of light, how it bends when it moves from one medium to another. Water to air, air to glass. It changes speed, changes angle. It reveals the nature of what it passes through. But it is still light, not lost, just different. Maybe information is like this too. Maybe what falls into a black hole doesn't vanish. It refracts. Your breath moves slowly now, like the orbit of a distant moon. You think of the physicists who dared to suggest these impossible ideas. Susskind, T. Hooft, the brave minds who looked at paradox not as a wall, but as a signpost. They saw the contradiction between quantum mechanics and general relativity, and instead of choosing one, they listened. They let the paradox speak, and from it came the notion of black hole complementarity, that no single observer sees all truth, but all truths together still make a coherent story. You begin to wonder if this applies beyond black holes, to life, to love, to the quiet contradictions we carry every day. Can opposites be partners in the dance of meaning against seeming? Conflict be a form of harmony we have not yet learned how to hear? The black hole pulses gently. Its surface is smooth now, no longer threatening, but tender. You imagine it as skin, not to contain, but to connect. A bridge between two views, outside and inside, past and future, observer and participant, and what of you? Where do you stand in this play of perspectives? You feel yourself occupying a strange position, not outside the black hole, not fully in. You are the in-between, the hinge on which both truths swing. You see the falling and the frozen. You feel the loss and the return. You do not collapse the paradox, cradle it. Perhaps this is your role, not to resolve, but to witness. to choose one truth, but to hold space for many. The black hole becomes a canvas, and you, the eye that allows its image to form. Your thoughts drift back to the horizon. Once you saw it as a line, then a surface, then a veil. Now you begin to see it as a kind of membrane, soft but strong. A place where information stretches, not to vanish, but to become. Like dough rolled thin to make bread. Like paint smeared to reveal light. The edge does not erase. It reveals. You float on that realization, weightless. What you thought was destruction is transformation. What you feared as silence is symmetry. What you called paradox is just perspective with room to breathe. The universe does not contradict itself. It folds, it bends, it echoes, and perhaps you begin to see, now, the deepest. Truths are not the ones we shout, but the ones we sit with. The ones we do not solve, but feel. It is a way of being. You let that wash through you, like starlight across water. You think of how particles can be entangled, each carrying information about the other, even across light years. And perhaps the black hole is entangled with everything. Not cut off, but mirrored. Maybe what we lose is not gone, just sent ahead in a different form. And maybe this is what it means to remember across boundaries. To feel that the you inside is also the you outside. That falling is not failure. That becoming different is not becoming less. The black hole turns slowly before you, its horizon gleaming like an idea you're just beginning to grasp. You do not rush, you do not conclude, because some truths are not destinations. They are directions. You lie still. Again, not to sleep, but to listen. The silence is full. The void is pregnant with implication. The paradox is not heavier. You are just stronger. And somewhere, deep within the reflection, another question flickers. If the inside is not gone, but seen differently, then what is the self? Is it a center, or is it a shape drawn by every eye that sees you? You don't answer. You breathe, and in that breath, the boundary glows softly once more. Asterisk, asterisk, the black hole turns slowly before you. Its horizon gleaming like an idea you're just beginning to grasp. You do not rush. You do not conclude, because some truths are not destinations, they are directions. You lie still again, not to sleep, but to listen. The silence is full. The void is pregnant with implication. The paradox is not heavier. You are just stronger. And somewhere, deep within the reflection, another question flickers. If the inside is not gone, but seen differently, then what is the self? Is it a center? Or is it a shape drawn by every eye that sees you? You don't answer. You breathe. And in that breath, the boundary glows softly once more. And now, something loosens. The veil doesn't fall, but it becomes thinner, more like mist than wall. And behind it, you feel the threads begin to stir. Not threads you can touch, but filaments, woven through the space between things. Invisible strands, stretching across nothing, holding up everything. You drift gently, deeper into this new silence where nothing is still, and everything is trembling. Space-time is not a stage, not something that simply is. It stretches, it curves, it warps, under weight, under presence. And beneath it, between it, something even more delicate hums. A rhythm that pulls at both gravity and light. You are not falling anymore. You are floating on a web. This web does not shimmer like silk. It pulses. It remembers. It argues with itself. Because it is made from contradiction gravity, slow and smooth, pulling inward like breath at rest, and quantum theory, twitching and quick, refusing to be pinned down, darting like minnows in a shallow stream. Two truths, again, that do not easily speak the same language. Yet, here you are, drifting where their voices overlap. You hear them now, the physicists who try to stitch this seam. They speak in the soft murmur of thought about strings curled in 10 dimensions, about loops that bend and bind like bracelets, of time, about entanglement, strange and beautiful, where particles remain connected across stars. Each voice is trying to weave something strong enough to hold reality. And you, for a moment, are the fabric they hope to sew. You picture the universe not as a place, but as a tapestry, woven from threads of possibility, tight and whispering. Pull one, and another trembles. Touch one corner, and the whole cloth sighs. In this weave, nothing is separate. No fall is final. No edge is truly sharp. Even the black hole that deepest here in space-time is not a hole at all, but a knot. A place where too many threads try to pass through the same space, and the paradox returns. Because this knot, this black hole, does not unravel. It tightens, it holds, it hides. But now you know it also sings, not with sound, but with radiation. A faint, ancient whisper of light escaping from the shadow. A soft hiss that may carry every secret ever swallowed, hawking radiation. A name you now hold like a candle in a dark room. It is not loud. It is not fast, but it matters. Because it suggests that the black hole is not forever. That even the deepest silence has a half-life. That even the strongest forgetting fades. But what then becomes of the information? If it leaks slowly, encoded in this final breath, what does it mean for the threads that built the universe? You feel the fabric tremble. Because the paradox is no longer just a black hole's problem. It is the universe's. Information should never be lost. That is the law. And yet, here it seems to be dripping into silence, unless the threads themselves are doing something stranger. You listen again to the voices of theory. One speaks of holograms, Not the glowing ones from childhood books, but the kind that tricks space itself. If the information is stored on the edge, then maybe the inside is an illusion, or maybe it is more than real. Another voice speaks of loops, that time might be woven like cloth, with moments looping back into themselves. What you call a fall might only be a curve, and still another voice whispers of strings, vibrating not in space, but as space. Each idea is a brushstroke on the edge of understanding. Each is incomplete, but not wrong. And you begin to see the universe is not built on answers. It is built on relationships. Entanglement, then, is not just a quantum trick. It is the rule of the web. Particles that are entangled do not share a message. They are the message. They do not send information to each other. They are the information split and shared across space. And if this is true for the smallest pieces of the cosmos, could it be true for you, too? You think of your own memory, how one moment ties to another, how a smell can recall a childhood, how a voice can pull you back through years. Maybe you, too, are a kind of entanglement, a loop of sensation and thought and reflection. Not a single point, but a pattern. So then, if the universe is made of threads, and you are made of patterns, then perhaps the difference between self and space is only a matter of scale. You feel no fear in this, only a widening. Gravity holds galaxies. Entanglement binds atoms. And in between, the paradox hums, not to trap you, but to invite you. The information paradox is not just a puzzle about what escapes a black hole. It is a mirror asking what you hold on to, what you remember, what parts of you stretch across time. The fabric of space-time is not flat. It curves beneath thought. It warps with presence. And somewhere in that curvature, the threads sing, quietly, but with meaning. You float now, not above, not outside, but within. The web does not end. It continues. Beneath your thought, around your memory. Even your question is part of the pattern. If nothing is lost, then every tug matters. You listen. Not for sound, but for resonance. The black hole no longer frightens you. It calls you. Not as a mystery to solve, but as a song to follow. A thread that trembles through the fabric and asks only that you feel it. And as you drift, as you breathe, another thread tightens, faint but present, a whisper of something deeper still. Not just entanglement, not just radiation, but meaning. Drawn across distance, you do not pull it, you let it pull you toward the next paradox, toward the next pattern, toward the next breath of the universe, becoming itself. Chapter 10. Entropy, Memory, and Meaning. You move now through a slower space where the air feels heavy with thought, and each moment stretches like soft fabric between stars. You do not rush. You float gently through the unfolding silence. Behind you, the song of gravity still hums, a thread of entanglement, of connection, of something deeper than knowing. And ahead, the air changes, not colder, not warmer, older somehow, like the breath of something vast that remembers everything it has ever been. Entropy. The word drifts toward you like a feather, not sharp or cruel, but curious. You've heard it before, the slow unraveling of order, the quiet drift from structure to scatter. You once thought of it as loss, as decay, as the end of pattern. But here, in this place that holds the echo of all that came before, entropy feels different, softer, not a forgetting, but a letting go. Not destruction, but diffusion. You reach toward the idea, not with hands, but with awareness. You feel it shimmer across everything, the way stars burn and cool, the way mountains crumble, the way thoughts fade at the edge of sleep. The universe is not erasing, it is transforming. Every change leaves a trace, like footprints in a desert. Wind. And though the winds are strong, some impressions never fully vanish. They become part of the sand. You drift through this thought gently and begin to see the black hole not as an eraser, but as a participant in this cosmic shift. It takes in light, matter, structure, and releases whispers, soft radiation. Encoded echoes. It does not hoard. It changes. It rearranges. Meaning is not destroyed here. It is folded, pressed into shapes you cannot yet read, but somehow still feel. You remember the paradox, the one that first brought you here. Information cannot be lost. And yet, black holes seemed to challenge that law. But now you see the deeper truth. Information is not a thing to be lost or kept. It is a relationship, a pattern, a web of cause and consequence that stretches through space and time. And even if its threads are tangled beyond recognition, the web still holds. Entropy is the story of that web loosening, but not vanishing, not erasing, just changing form. You think of smoke rising from fire. The fire is gone, but the smoke remembers. It, not in shape, but in scent, not in function, but in residue. You breathe in that idea and feel something within you settle. Perhaps this is why nothing can be truly forgotten. Not by black holes, not by you. Perhaps every sorrow, every joy, every action, they all become part of the weave. Even when you let them go, the black hole hums in the distance, not louder, but clearer. Its radiation is faint, but constant. You now hear it, not as destruction, but as song. A slow, low melody that carries meaning in its silence. Every particle it emits is a note. Every note is a trace. Every trace is a memory transformed. You drift closer, not in space, but in thought. You remember how entropy rises with time. How the arrow of time seems to lean forward, always forward, because the universe prefers the messy, the scattered, the diffused. And yet, in all this spread, memory endures. Not in perfect snapshots, but in echoes. You hear them now. The way the universe listens to itself, you are listening too. And in that listening, you realize the past is not gone. It is enfolded, like pages in a book you've already read. They don't vanish when you turn them. They become part of the spine. What is a memory, then, if not a form of time you can hold? And what is meaning, if not memory given shape? You feel. Your own thoughts drift like leaves on a pond. Not scattered, but softened. You remember that meaning does not always arrive in clarity. Sometimes it arrives in presence. In being here, in this moment, with the question, with the silence, with the thread still trembling beneath your breath, you begin to wonder if the universe itself is a kind of memory. A great, unfolding record, not kept in books or minds, but in motion. In temperature, in entropy, every change a mark. Every pattern a note. You think of the earliest stars, the first atoms, the first collisions. They are not gone. Their signatures ripple still through background radiation, through the distribution of galaxies, through the temperature of empty space. The past is not a place. It is a texture. And now, as you drift along this thought, you realize something quietly beautiful. You are made of memory. Your body, your thoughts, your breath, all shaped by the echo of ancient stars. Your existence is a continuation of patterns set long before your birth. You pause, not to stop thinking, but to feel the fullness of that truth. Entropy does not steal meaning. It spreads it. It makes room for new arrangements, like the ash that feeds soil, like the silence that follows music, allowing the next note to matter. The black hole pulses gently before you. It does not threaten. It reflects. You begin to understand that even here, in this most extreme of places, the laws of nature still hold. And those laws, those quiet, patient laws, speak not just of energy, but of balance, of responsibility, of the universe. Remembering itself, you think of time again. Not as a river, but as a field. Not as a line, but as a rhythm. What if the future already exists, like the past? Perhaps. Entropy is not the enemy of order. Perhaps it is its teacher. It shows you what lasts, what persists, what matters enough to remain, even after the form is gone. You breathe, and even that breath feels like a thread, tying you to everything that has come before. Air shaped by forests, by oceans, by the respiration of creatures long extinct. You are not separate from this web. You are an intersection, a place where meaning is gathered, even if briefly. The thought comforts you, not because it answers every question, but because it allows the questions to live. If nothing is truly lost, only rearranged, then perhaps every goodbye is also a transformation. Perhaps every ending is just another shape memory takes. The black hole continues its slow release of radiation, and you no longer see it as lonely. You see it as generous, as patient. As part of the story, you float again through the weave. Each thread of heat, of light, of time, a syllable in a sentence that never quite ends. And maybe it's not meant to end. Maybe the universe doesn't need to conclude. It only needs to continue. You feel yourself soften again. Not because you are fading, but because you are expanding. You are not shrinking into the void. You are becoming part of the pattern. And as you let go, as you lean into this slow unfolding, you feel something return. Not knowledge, but understanding. Not facts, but feeling. The gentle recognition that even loss can hold beauty. You do not need to preserve every structure. You only need to feel their traces. You only need to listen. And somewhere, just ahead, the fabric shimmers again, not torn, but breathing. You drift again, as if the universe is exhaling in slow motion. Around you, space stretches quietly, gently. The black hole before you, once immense and roaring with gravity, now hums in silence. Its edges no longer burn with hunger. Its pull no longer tugs with urgency. Instead, it glows faintly, a dying ember at the edge of space-time. You do not fear it. You followed its story from birth to paradox, from shadow to surface. Now you follow it into stillness. It shrinks, not abruptly, not violently, but like a breath releasing. Each wisp of radiation carries away another fragment of its mass. A soft unraveling. This is Hawking's dream made real. The idea that black holes are not eternal prisons, but slow leakers of their own secrets, one photon at a time, like a candle that flickers and whispers light into the dark, long after its wick is consumed. You watch this quiet vanishing and realize this too is part of the pattern. For so long, you thought of black holes as endpoints, final, but now you see them differently, not as ends, but as transformations, bridges, perhaps, or passages. The more it fades, the more you feel its presence shifting, not gone, just changed. Like a sound becoming an echo, like a fire becoming warmth. There is no bang, no collapse, just a thinning, like fog in morning light. You imagine standing close, feeling the final pulses of heat on your skin. They're not hot anymore. They're not desperate. They're gentle. And in that gentleness, something stirs, something deeper than noise, quieter than silence. Meaning, maybe, you recall entropy, the slow slide from order to disorder. But disorder, you've learned, isn't absence. It's diffusion. It's spread. What was once tight and dense is now dispersed across the sky. You wonder if that's how memory works, too. Not erased, just unheld. Not lost, just no longer in one place. Could the universe remember through scattering? A black hole evaporates, and yet the radiation it leaves is not empty. Some think it holds traces of everything that ever crossed the horizon. If you had the right key, they say, you could read it. You could piece together the story, every particle, a letter, every wave, a whisper of what came before. But you're not here to solve it. You're here to witness, to feel, and what you feel. Is this, the black hole is telling its final story. Not in words, not in equations, in the way it lets go, in the way it fades without fear. You imagine the last photon leaving, not hurried, not afraid, just ready. Then the silence. The black hole is gone, but the space where it once was still hums. A subtle pressure in the vacuum. A memory not in matter, but in the field itself. You sense it, like the warmth in a chair just vacated. Something was here, and though it's not anymore, the shape of its presence lingers. Is this the afterlife of information? You drift closer to where it had been, and the closer you come, the more you feel a kind of reverence, as if even the vacuum remembers, as if the fabric of space-time holds not just gravity, but grief, not just curvature, but care. Some physicists speak of Planck-scale remnants, tiny, dense seeds that might survive the evaporation. Others imagine full recovery, that the radiation holds everything, just scrambled. Still others suggest a kind of cosmic forgetting, a surrender of detail in favor of pattern. You don't choose a side. You let all possibilities rise, like mist, because what matters isn't the answer. It's the gesture, the release, the transformation of what once devoured into something that gives. Even in its end, the black hole does not cling. It offers back its mass, its heat, its secrets. And maybe, in doing so, it offers you a metaphor for all endings. Maybe no thing ever truly disappears. Maybe disappearance is just another form of presence. The silence around you is vast, but not empty. You listen, not with ears, but with attention. And what you hear is a kind of waiting. The universe does not close the book. It leaves the page open, as though the story continues in a language not yet spoken. You think of your own memories, the ones that blur and soften, the ones you forget, not out of neglect, but because they've diffused into who you are. You are not a vault. You are a process, a slow radiation of experience into meaning, and meaning does not need to be sharp to be real. Maybe the universe works that way too. You wonder, could everything be held in a shimmer? Could every act, every thought, every fall into darkness still leave behind some glow? You stretch out, slowly, into the quiet. Not to reach, but to feel. The space is calm. The fabric is smooth again. The black hole's roar is memory now. A footprint in the quantum field. a shadow in the math, but shadows can be read. You remember the holographic screen, the idea that reality might be encoded on boundaries. Perhaps the black hole surface was never a trap, but a journal, a cosmic palimpsest. Scratched over, written, again, but never truly erased. In its final moment, the black hole becomes not smaller, but wider metaphorically. It becomes part of everything. Its radiation joins the background hum, and in that joining, nothing is lost, only rephrased. You breathe in the echo, and it feels like a gift. Somewhere deep inside you, something softens further. Not because it's dying, because it's waking. As if the evaporation is not an end, but an opening, a beginning, not of new things, but of new seeing. You followed the black hole from collapse to glow, from hunger to harmony. There is only transformation, just as light becomes heat, just as time becomes story, just as memory becomes meaning. Asterisk, asterisk, the universe whispers, still, not louder, just deeper. You listen, and somewhere in that listening, you begin to hear not just what is gone, but what is becoming. The black hole is not here, but the question it asked remains. And as you float in the place where it once pulsed, the silence offers you one final shape. A shape not of erasure, but of release, and softly, somewhere in the background, the next mystery begins to glow. Asterisk, asterisk, you drift in the wake of silence. Where the black hole once pulsed, where time once curved into itself. No horizon to fear, only the hush of what lingers, what remains, what whispers without sound. And in that hush, you return to a question older than the stars. Can anything truly be lost? It does not come as thunder. It comes like a breath warming. Frost, a feeling instead of a fact. You remember the threads of space, of thought, of memory, winding through everything. They do not vanish. They spread. They weave. You float not forward, but inward, as though the universe, in its great spiraling hush, is folding you back into something ancient and tender, a cradle made of curvature and echo. The end that is also the beginning. Everything you've seen, the entropy, the radiation, the veils of information, feels different now. Not like riddles to be solved, but songs to be carried. You no longer search for the data. You search for the tone, the resonance, the way one vibration finds another and becomes harmony. You wonder, softly, if this is what memory really is. Not a copy of what was, but a continuation of its rhythm, like a bell that keeps singing even after it is still. Like the light from stars long vanished that still finds your eyes. The fabric of space-time does not feel flat or vast anymore. It feels personal, intimate, as if it knows you, as if it remembers the pull of your presence, the curve of your thought, and you, in turn, feel its fingerprints on your being. What is loss, really, in a universe that remembers through pattern, through heat, through the curvature of gravity and the stretch of light? Perhaps to be lost is only to be scattered. And to be scattered is not to disappear. It is to be held in new arrangements, new meanings. You think of entropy again, but not as death, as rearrangement, a graceful diffusion of order into broader possibility. The way steam leaves the kettle, not to vanish, but to join the clouds. The way ash becomes soil. The way silence makes music possible. You rest in this rhythm. You let the pattern hold you. The black hole is gone, and yet it is not. It has become its echo, its heat, its influence still curving the space around it. Long after its body has vanished, like a life lived well, like a question asked with sincerity, like love. You have not lost anything, you have transformed. The universe is not a vault. It is a process, a becoming. What falls in does not end. It contributes. It changes the texture of what comes next. And what is information, really, if not the fingerprint of becoming? A way to say, I was here. This mattered. This changed something. This left a trace. You breathe. Each breath, a note in the larger music. Each heartbeat, an echo of stars collapsing and being born. You no longer feel apart from the cosmos. You feel written into it, like a letter in an alphabet that never ends. Perhaps you were never meant to read the whole story, only to be a sentence, a gesture, a pause that lets the next word shine. You think again of the light, not as something that travels, but as something that listens. It holds what it touches. It carries the shape of its source long after the source is gone. And you are made of light's memory, of stars' forgiveness, of gravity's lullaby. You remember the hologram, the shimmering boundary that held everything, not by walls, but by reflections, the way the outside can tell the story of the inside. And now you understand the reflection is not a copy. It is a continuation, a translation. Everything is translation. Energy becomes matter. Matter becomes heat. Heat becomes motion. Motion becomes thought. Thought becomes memory. And memory becomes meaning. You see now why nothing is truly lost. Because every transformation holds a trace. Not always visible, not always measurable, but always there, felt, inferred, loved. The black hole asked the question, where does it all go? And now, softly, the universe answers. It goes into everything. You feel your edges blur. Not in fear, in belonging. You do not need to be solid. You need to be part of the fabric, part of the song. And in that release, you return, not to the beginning, but to the stillness beneath it, the place where time breathes instead of ticks. You rest not in ignorance, but in wonder. Not in forgetting, but in trust.